Good afternoon, students. Welcome to our online e-learning class. This is your third period and the subject is social science. Students, in the previous class, last week, we have started chapter 4 agriculture from the book Geography. And through live session, I have completed up to the topic intensive subsistence farming. After that, I have sent you 2 recorded videos. And those 2 recorded videos covered the following topics, namely commercial farming. What is commercial farming? Next one, cropping pattern topic. And major crops in India, all crops I have covered. Then again in the next video I have covered food crops other than grains. Food crops other than grains, in which you have studied about oil seeds, tea, coffee. Almost all I have completed up to horticulture. I have completed up to horticulture. Now today in this video or through this video, I am covering the next topics which are given in the chapter. Today in this video, I am going to start the topic non-food grains or non-food crops. Non-food crops. In the non-food crops, we will read about rubber and some fiber crops. Next topic, technological and institutional reforms. Next one, Bhudan and Gramdan movements. If time permits, I will move forward the another topic, that is contributions of agriculture or contribution of agriculture to the national economy in the field of employment and output. If time permits, I will go there. But today I am covering these 3 topics. So our first topic is non-food crops. In this non-food crops, today we are going to read about one important crop, that is natural rubber or rubber. So I will tell and give some information regarding this natural rubber or rubber. The rubber crop is an equatorial crop. Equatorial means what? This crop is grown in equatorial belt, equatorial region, the region where there is heavy rainfall and more sunshine, more heat. So rubber can be called as equatorial crop. It's equatorial crop. It is grown in equatorial belt. But under some special conditions, this crop can also be grown in tropical and subtropical areas. Suppose in the tropical areas, if the conditions are favorable, if the geographical conditions are favorable, definitely this crop can also be grown. So under some special conditions, this crop, rubber crop, can also be grown in tropical and subtropical areas. This rubber crop requires moist and humid climate. It requires moist and humid climate. It requires rainfall more than 200 centimeters. More than 200 centimeters, wherever rainfall is there is a possibility of growing this crop. Similarly, it also requires a temperature above 25 degrees Celsius. So, I repeat once again, rubber is a equatorial crop grown in equatorial belt areas. Under some special conditions, it can be grown in tropical and subtropical areas if the geographical conditions are favorable. This crop requires moist and humid climate. It requires the rainfall more than 200 centimeters. That means wherever the rainfall is more than 200 centimeters, there this crop is grown. Similarly, it also requires a temperature above 25 degrees Celsius. In our country India, this crop is grown in the following states. What are those states? First is Kerala, second Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and the Garo Hills of Meghalaya. The Garo Hills of Meghalaya. But the leading producer is what? Kerala state. This rubber crop supplies raw materials for industries. I mean, it is an important supplier of raw materials for industries. Many rubber industries are depending upon this rubber as their raw materials. In 2010 and 11, our India ranks 4th position among the major producers of rubber. Okay? Now I am moving to another topic, that is fiber crops. What are fiber crops? Okay, what are fiber crops? And some examples I will give you. First I will give examples. Cotton, jute, hemp and natural silk. These four are the fiber crops. These four are the fiber crops: cotton, jute, hemp and natural silk. Hemp is similar to jute. The crop hemp is similar to jute. Out of these four crops, 3 crops are grown in soils. Cotton, jute, hemp, they are grown in soils. However, this natural silk is produced through cocoons of the silkworms. Cocoons of the silkworms, when the silkworms fed on mulberry leaves, when the cocoons of the silkworms fed on mulberry leaves, then we can obtain natural silk. Now very important sentence, one more question I am telling. Rearing of silkworms. Rearing of silkworms. Rearing. Okay. Rearing of silkworms for the production of silk is called sericulture. You may be asked, what is sericulture? Rearing of silkworms for the production of silk is called sericulture. Clear? Now, moving to another one, that is cotton. Cotton is believed to be the original home of the cotton plant. I repeat, India is believed to be the original home. Our country India is believed to be the original home of cotton plant. Cotton is one of the main raw material for cotton textile industry. Cotton is the main raw material for cotton textile industry. In 2008, India was second largest producer of cotton after China. In 2008, India is the second largest producer of cotton after China. Cotton grows well in drier areas or drier parts of the black cotton soils of Deccan Plateau. Simply, I can say cotton is grown in drier areas. Cotton is grown in drier areas and it is well grown in the black soils. In India, the black soils are found in the Deccan Trap, the Deccan part of India. So cotton is grown in drier areas, especially in black soils in our Deccan Plateau in India. Cotton requires high temperature and light rainfall or irrigation. I mean, irrigation is not needed that much, but needs high temperature. Cotton needs high temperature, light rainfall or less irrigation. 210 frost-free days. Frost-free, the dew, hailstorm, sleet, mist, fog, like this. So frost, 210 days frost-free. 210 days frost-free days. Okay, and bright sunshine is required for its growth. That means frost is not favorable for cotton. We want frost-free days. Frost always damages the cotton. If frost is there, then the cotton, which is white in color, will turn into a black. It will be spoiled. The crop gets spoiled. So 210 days frost-free days are required for the growth of cotton. It is a kharif crop. Cotton is a kharif crop and requires 6 to 8 months for mature. I mean, if a farmer wants to grow cotton, it requires 6 to 8 months to get the crop in his hand. Now, I'll tell you the major crop producing states in India. What are those states who are producing cotton majorly? So, the major cotton producing states in India are Maharashtra, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh. Here you may ask, sir, black soils are found only in Deccan Plateau. Then how this cotton is grown in Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh also? In Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh also this crop is grown, irrespective of black soils. Here Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh we are having alluvial soils. So in that soils it is grown, but the production will be less. The ideal soils for growing cotton is what? Black only. Okay, now coming to next fiber crop, that is jute. J-U-T, jute. So jute crop is also known as golden fiber. Listen students, golden fiber. Jute is called golden fiber. It will be asked in objective. Which crop is called golden fiber? Jute. Jute grows well on well-drained fertile soils. Jute is grown well. Jute is grown well in the well-drained soils in the floodplains. In floodplain areas, wherever regular floods are there, wherever the well-drained fertile soils are there, those areas jute is grown abundantly, largely. So the crop jute is grown well in the well-drained soils in the floodplains, where soils are renewed every year. You studied about soils, Bangar, Kadar, they are floodplain soils. So those areas where the soils are renewed every year, those well-drained fertile soils, in those soils this jute crop is grown more. Now high temperature is required during the time of growth. At the time of growth of jute, at the time of growth of jute, high temperatures are required. Now I will tell you the states which are the leading producers of this jute. Leading producers of jute crop. So in India, West Bengal, Bihar, Assam, Odisha, Meghalaya are the major jute producing states in our India. I repeat, West Bengal, Assam, Bihar, Odisha, Meghalaya are the leading producers of jute in our country, India. Now, what is the use of jute? You know the use of cotton, making clothes, textiles. Now, what is the use of jute? So, jute is used in making gunny bags. Gunny bags. Okay, gunny bags are made up of jute. Nowadays, the cement bags, onion bags, all are coming in what? This plastic one, polymer one. But initially, the rice bag, jute rice bag, or this onions bag, gunny bags are made up of what? This jute. So it is used to making gunny bags. Similarly, mats, ropes, decorative items, yarn means what? Thread, yarn, carpets and other artifacts. Here artifacts means what? Decorative items. With the help of jute you can make gunny bags, we can make artifacts, we can make yarn, sutli. You can know sutli, bandhne wala, sutli. So yarn, okay, carpets, ropes, mats, etc. Now, due to high cost or due to its high cost, it is losing the market to synthetic fibers. I mean the production of jute for the farmer becomes very high. It costs very high. So that's why we are replacing jute with what? This synthetic fibers and packing materials, particularly with nylon. Today we are using nylon bags. Earlier we are using what? Jute bags. Now we are moving to the next topic, that is technological and institutional reforms. What are the technological and institutional reforms brought in the field of agriculture by the Indian government? What are the technological and institutional reforms brought by our government in the field of agriculture? Listen students, very very important question. This question will be asked for 5 marks. It was mentioned in the previous pages that our country India is an agricultural country. Agriculture was the main occupation in India. Two-thirds of workforce are engaged in agriculture. Okay, and so what I want to say, and agriculture was age-old practice since thousands of years. We are practicing what? Agriculture, which we have learned from our forefathers, our ancestors. And sustained use of land without compatible techno-institutional changes. Sustained use of land without compatible, okay, techno-institutional changes have stopped. Hindered means what? Stopped the pace of agricultural development. That means we are unable to use proper agricultural land, or we are unable to use the agricultural land properly. We are unable to use proper technology, proper institutional changes, reforms in the field of agriculture. Hence, our agriculture production is what? Less. In spite of development of the source of irrigation, though we developed irrigation facilities in India by establishing the irrigation projects. So, in spite of development of the source of irrigation, most of the farmers are still, or large number of farmers still are depending upon monsoon rains for what? Irrigation to their fields. Though in India, irrigation facilities are developed. We have started irrigation projects. We have developed canals. Through canals we are irrigating, but still majority of the farmers in India are still depending upon monsoon rains for irrigating their fields. Okay, for growing country, or for a country where the population is growing rapidly, so we have to grow the food grains also in the same pace, but we are unable to reach the space of growth of population in the field of food grain production. So we are facing scarcity of food grains in our country, India. So I can say, hence there is a serious challenge, problem we are facing with the growing population when compared with the food grain production. Agriculture which provides livelihood for more than 60%. Remember, objective question. Agriculture in India is providing more than 60% of population with the food, or more than 60% of population in India are deriving their food from what? Agriculture. Okay, and since we are deriving more food from agriculture, more than 60% of population, there is a need to be developed what? Technical and institutional reforms in this field. We need to develop agriculture. We need to bring some institutional and technological reforms in the field of agriculture, because majority of the people are depending on agriculture for their livelihood. Thus, the collectivization and consolidation of land holdings, I mean collecting land, that's called collectivization, and consolidation of holdings, I mean land holdings, I mean bringing small land holdings into together a big one, that is called consolidation of land holdings, bringing small lands into one bigger land holding. So collectivization, consolidation of land holdings, cooperation and abolition of Jamindari system. We have to abolish Jamindari system, which was started by the Britishers in our country India, okay, before independence, which we have abolished after independence. So we have to abolish Jamindari system, etc. Were given priority. I mean, all these three things you have to abolish. Okay, you have to bring the small lands into a large land holding. You have to collect the land. At the same time, you have to abolish Jamindar system. Okay, so these were given priority to bring about institutional reforms in the country after independence. Land reform. Land reforms was the main focus, or land reform was the main focus of our 5-year plans. In our 5-year plans, we focus more on what? Land reforms, making some necessary changes in land reforms, removing the problems in the land holdings. Okay. The right of inheritance. A right of inheritance means what? What we are getting from our parents. The right of inheritance had already led to fragmentation of land holdings. Suppose your father is having 10 hectares of land. Your father is blessed with 2 children. So the 10 hectares of land will be divided into equally 5 land holdings. Again, their children, I mean, those children are getting married. Again, their children. So again, the 5 hectares of land again will be subdivided into small land fragments. So what is said here? The right of inheritance had already led to the fragmentation of land holdings. I mean, division of land holding. Fragmentation, division of land holdings. So in this way, in India, the land holdings are becoming very small, and in small land holding we cannot use technology. We cannot use technology in small land holdings. We cannot use modern methods and machines in the small land holdings. Okay, so this inheritance of land from the parents, okay, already lead to what? Fragmentation of land. Okay, so that we have to consolidate now. Those small landholdings, you have to bring them together. You have to make a big land holding so that we can implement modern techniques and methods. The law, or I can say the laws of land hold reforms were enacted. Though the Indian government implemented several land reforms, land laws after independence, but their implementation part was not proper, lukewarm, I mean very slow. Though Indian government after independence made several reforms, land reforms, but in the implementation part, if we come to see, they were not implemented properly. People have not followed that one properly. So the laws of land reforms were what? Enacted, but the laws of implementation was lacking or lukewarm. The government of India embarked means what? Started. The government of India embarked upon introducing agriculture reforms to improve the Indian agriculture in the 1960s and 1970s. The Green Revolution was started in 1960s and 70s. The Green Revolution is what? Increasing the food crops or increasing the food grains. Increasing the food grains is called Green Revolution. So the Green Revolution, based on the use of package, technology, and White Revolution means Operation Flood Project. Green Revolution means increasing the food grain production in our country India. Green Revolution means increasing the food grain production in our country India. And White Revolution means what? increasing the milk production in our country India. White revolution refers to increasing the milk production in our country India. It is also called Operation Flood Project. My dear students, Operation Flood Project. Your flood means, don't think that flood, the natural calamity, droughts and floods, not that flood. Here Operation Flood Project is name given to the increasing the milk production, that is called White Revolution. So these are the two, or these are some of the programs, okay, were some of the strategies, some of the methods initiated to improve a lot to the Indian agriculture. But these two led to a lot of concentration of development in few selected areas. Though we developed a green revolution, but it was restricted to the northwestern part of India, that is Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh. So green revolution was first started in the northwestern part of India, particularly Punjab, Haryana and Western Uttar Pradesh states. Later it was started in other states. So there is an imbalance in agricultural growth throughout the country. Similarly, in Operation Flood Project or increasing milk production in the country, you know Anand, Amul in Gujarat. So there it was concentrated. Okay, so these two programs, though they brought changes in the improvement in the production, but it leads to what? Imbalances, regional imbalances in our country India. Okay, therefore, in the 1980s and 1990s, a comprehensive, a big land development program was initiated, which included both institutional and technical reforms. So in 1980s and 1990s, in India, in 1980s and 1990s, a comprehensive, very big program was launched to bring some institutional and technological reforms in the field of agriculture. Now, what are they? Provision for crop insurance against drought. Provision for crop insurance against drought and flood and cyclone. So suppose if any farmer's crop is being affected due to flood, drought and famine, then he will be given crop insurance. Similarly, suppose a farmer crop is, a farmer lost his crop due to fire and disease. For that also government is given insurance. So insurance are given for farmer's crop against fire, against disease, against flood, against drought, against famines. Next one. Second important change. Establishment of Grameen Banks Cooperative Societies. Establishment of Grameen Bank Cooperative Societies and banks for providing loans facilities to the farmers at lower rates. Several banks were established in rural areas. Grameen banks, cooperative banks. These banks are established in mostly rural areas in order to provide credit at lower rate of interest to the farmers, so that they can take the loans from the banks and they can make necessary changes, necessary improvements in their land. Next one. Kisan Credit Card, KCC, Kisan Credit Card. Okay, Kisan Credit Card, also one of the change we made in India. Similarly, Personal Accident Insurance Scheme, PAIS, Personal Accident Insurance Scheme, also we started in India to the farmers. Some other schemes introduced by the government in India for the benefit of farmers. Now, moreover, special weather bulletins are also broadcast or telecast through television, radio to the farmers, giving information about that which crop they have to start or sown in which season, which crop is suitable for which soils is suitable for which crops. So weather bulletins are also information about crops, information about soils, information about seeds, information about fertilizers, pesticides are given through television and radios to the farmers. Even through mobiles also they are getting the information. Okay. The government also announces, another one, last one. The government also announces minimum support price, MSP, minimum support price. The government also announces the minimum support price before the Kharif season The government is announcing minimum support price to every crop. They're fixing minimum support price to every crop, informing farmer that if they'll grow that crop and if they'll sell to the government, at least they'll get that much support price. So in this way, it is giving an boost or encouragement to the farmers to grow that particular crop. This minimum support price MSP is announced by the government before the Kharif season in order to attract the farmers, in order to encourage the farmers to grow that particular crop. And if they grow the crop and if they'll sell to the government, at least they'll get that much price. That is minimum support price. Okay, and also remunerative and procurement. When the farmer is growing the crop, then the crop is collected by the government and they kept in the FCI godowns. They are doing food security, food storage. Okay, so remunerative and procurement prices for important crops to check the exploitation of farmers by the middlemen. Why MSP is announced by the government? In order to check the middleman between the seller and the farmer, or between the buyer and the farmer. So this is about this topic. Next we will go to the last topic, that is Bhudan and Gramdan movement. Bhudan and Gramdan movement. Student, listen carefully. Mahatma Gandhi, well-known noted figure. So Mahatma Gandhi declared Vinoba Bhave or Acharya Vinoba Bhave as a spiritual higher. Higher means what? Disciple or is subordinate. Mahatma Gandhi declared Acharya Vinoba Bhave as his spiritual higher. That means Acharya Vinoba Bhave followed the footsteps of Mahatma Gandhi. He followed all the principles of Mahatma Gandhi. He also participated in Satyagraha. Okay, Acharya Vinoba Bhave also participated in the Satyagraha movements along with Mahatma Gandhi as one of the foremost Satyagrahi. Who? Acharya Vinoba Bhave. He was one of the votaries. VOTARES. He was one of the votaries of Gandhi's concept of Gram Swarajya. Actually, Mahatma Gandhi wanted to develop India through Gram Swarajya. Mahatma Gandhi always used to say, we can attain Swaraj through villages, through grams. He wanted to establish a Rama Rajya through Gram Rajya. Mahatma Gandhi wanted to attain Rama Rajya, the prosperous administration through Gram Rajya. So here what is said here? Here Acharya Vinoba Bhave is one of the votaries of Gandhi's concept of Gram Swarajya. After Gandhiji's martyrdom, when he left us, when he became martyrdom, okay, Vinoba Bhave undertook what? Padyatra. He undertook the Padyatra, walking on barefoot, to spread Gandhiji's message. To spread Gandhi's message covered almost the entire country. Okay? Once, now listen the incident. Students, listen the incident carefully. Once, when he was delivering a lecture, when this Acharya Vinoba Bhave on this Padyatra, he stationed at many places and he gave lecture to the people, villagers, farmers. So once what happened? Once he was delivering a lecture at Pochampalli in Andhra Pradesh. Pochampalli is famous for what? Here coir goods. Pochampalli. When he was stationed at Pochampalli and delivering his lecture in Andhra Pradesh, some poor landless villagers demanded, they came to the meeting, some poor landless farmers, they came and they demanded some land for their economic well-being. They requested Acharya Vinoba Bhave to donate some land to them so that they can practice agriculture. Acharya Vinoba Bhave, could not promise it to them. He unable to promise because he is not having land in his hand. He could not make a promise to them immediately, but immediately is not able to give any word or any promise to them, but assured them to talk to the government of India regarding the provision of land for them if they undertook cooperative farming. So he said that I am unable to give you right now the promise to you that I will provide land to you, but I will talk to the Indian government that if you agree for cooperative farming, when 10 to 15 farmers will collectively do the cultivation, that's called cooperative farming, then He'll recommend to the government, and if government will agree, then they will provide some land to these people. Suddenly, when this discussion is going on, then suddenly Sri Ramchandra Reddy, listen, Sri Ramchandra Reddy, he stood up and offered 80 acres of land. Suddenly Sri Ramchandra Reddy stood up and he offered 80 acres of land to be distributed among the 80 landless villagers. 80 landless villages. I mean, each person got 1 acre of land. This act was known as Bhudan. Bhudan means what? Donating land. Here Bhudan means what? Donating land. Later, he traveled, Acharya Vinoba Bhave traveled throughout India, other parts of India also, and introduced his ideas widely all over India. Some jamidars, owners of many villages, offered to distribute same village. I repeat, some jamidars and owners of many villages offered to distribute some villages among the landless people. It was known as Gramdan. I mean, donating villages to the landless people or villagers, donating villages to the villagers by the jamidars or owners of the village is called Gramdan. So both took place. However, many landowners choose to provide some part of their land to the poor farmers. Okay. Due to the fear of Land Ceiling Act, listen students, at that time what happened? Government of Independence started what? Some agricultural reforms. They introduced land reforms, Land Ceiling Acts. So some farmers were having more land under their control. So with the fear of Land Ceiling Act, what they did? They transferred their surplus land to their relatives or some others' names instead of giving to the government. At the time, the government fixed it. A person should not hold more than this particular amount of land. Say for example 5 acres of land. If any person is having not more than 5 acres of land, that will be collected by the government through Land Ceiling Act. So in order to escape from this Land Ceiling Act that was introduced by the government, many farmers, many jamidars, many landowners, they transferred the land in the name of the relatives or some other person. Okay. So due to the fear of Land Ceiling Act, many people they transferred their names to the relatives, and many people they donated land to the landless farmers. This Bhudan Gramdan movement initiated by Acharya Vinoba Bhave is also known as what? Bloodless Revolution. Why this revolution? I mean, Bhudan and Gramdan movement which was started by Acharya Vinoba Bhave, why it is called Bloodless Revolution? Because without a single drop of blood, without any violence, this movement was a successful one. Okay, students? So, I have covered all these topics. So, students, this is the end of our today's video. The next day, we will come up with some more topics, and the next video will be in the form of live. Thank you, students. Take care. One important thing, some students have shared their notes in my personal window. I appeal all the other students also to share their notes, written notes, their pics in my personal window. Thank you. Have a nice day.